Have you ever watched a show, invested in its message, and by the end thought, wait, was that all for nothing? That's exactly how a lot of people felt after watching a Squid Game Season 3. Seong Gi-hun's arc, from the very first episode to his final moments in Season 3, is supposed to be about redemption, compassion, and breaking the cycle. But when you really break it down, his sacrifice feels like it didn't accomplish much, at least not in the way he intended. Today, we're going to dive into why Gi-hun's sacrifice was both meaningful and meaningless at the same time, how it symbolizes the impossible fight against systemic cruelty, and why a Squid Game might actually be one of the most honest stories about social change, even if it leaves you feeling cheated by the end. Let's start with the big moment, the line that echoes in the minds of many fans right now. We are not horses, we are humans. Humans are. Gi-hun never finishes the sentence, but the message is clear. He's trying to remind the VIPs, the frontman, and the audience that the players aren't commodities. They are not pieces on a game board. They are not entertainment for the ultra-rich. They are people with dignity, with struggles, and with the capacity for something other than violence. But here's the catch. No one listening truly acted on that message. The frontman, Min-ho, understood it emotionally. He saves the newborn baby and delivers Gi-hun's prize money to his daughter. But let's be real, that's not systemic change. That's a symbolic gesture, like throwing pennies at a burning building. The guard, Kang No-il, who was inspired by Gi-hun's sacrifice, does not actually expose the games or does anything meaningful either. She saves a single player, destroys the evidence out of panic, and in doing so, protects the system she was supposed to help dismantle. And the VIPs? They treat Gi-hun's final moments as part of the spectacle, just another twist in their never-ending game. So, was his death pointless? Well, yes and no. Let's zoom out and look at the core philosophy of a Squid Game. From the beginning, the masterminds, such as Oh Il-nam, the frontman, the recruiter, they all share one core belief. Desperation turns humans into animals. Push people far enough, and they will abandon their morals. They will kill for survival. They will become tools in someone else's entertainment. Il-nam literally says this. For him, the games are an experiment to see if anyone can hold onto their humanity when everything's on the line. And for the most part, he thinks the answer is no. But Gi-hun is supposed to be the exception, right? Well, not entirely. Here's when it gets complicated. Gi-hun isn't a perfect hero. In fact, during Season 2, he allowed people to be killed in the special game, a moment when he actively decided to let chaos happen, hoping it would spark rebellion, and it did. But think about that for a second. That's exactly the kind of moral compromise the system expects. Sacrifice morality for the greater good. Let a few people die so more can be saved later. That's the same logic the frontman uses to justify his role. It's the same logic the games themselves use to justify their existence. So when Gi-hun does it, he becomes part of the problem, at least temporarily. He plays into the system's rules, believing he can outmaneuver it from within. In that moment, he becomes a reflection of the very cruelty he wants to stop. But the reason his sacrifice at the end still matters is because it's his redemption for that failure. When he chooses not to kill the other players like the frontman intended and to save the baby in the final game, even at the cost of his own life, he finally rejects the system outright. He doesn't play the game anymore. He just chooses to be human. He chooses compassion over victory. And that moment, while small, proves a point. It shows that human kindness can survive even in hell. But here's the brutal truth. That act wasn't enough to change the system. The Squid Game continues. In fact, it's global. At the end, we can see a recruiter in Los Angeles setting the stage for the next round of exploitation. So Gi-hun's sacrifice becomes what a lot of sacrifices in real life end up being: symbolic, moving, but systematically useless in the short term. That's what makes this story so unsettling, and maybe why it's stuck in your head. Because in the real world, that's often how it goes. The people who stand up against injustice usually don't win cleanly. Their message gets watered down, repackaged, or outright ignored. Sometimes they are turned into martyrs, and their deaths get sold back to the masses as entertainment. Sound familiar? Netflix literally made a Squid Game the challenge. Mr. Beast made his own Squid Game, Beast Games. The message got turned into content, into merch, into memes. The message was not understood, not even in the real world. In the real world, Gi-hun's death became part of the entertainment loop, just like in the show. And that's not an accident. Hwang Dong-hyuk, the creator of Squid Game, originally planned for Gi-hun to survive. He was supposed to reunite with his daughter, confront the recruit in LA, maybe even expose the games. But midway through writing season 3, Hwang changed his mind. He said that with the world falling apart, with things such as inequality, war, climate collapse, a clean, happy ending felt dishonest, so he rewrote it. Gi-hun dies, the games expand, the cycle continues. It's a gut punch, but it's meant to be, because a Squid Game isn't just a story about individuals fighting systems. It's a story about how systems absorb rebellion, chew it up, and sell it back to you as a product. We commodify the warnings. We turn social critique into marketing. So, is Gi-hun's sacrifice at the end of a Squid Game pointless? In a way, yes. He doesn't stop the games. He doesn't save the other players. His message barely reaches anyone. But in a way, it still matters. Because he proved that even in a rigged system, you can still choose to be human. That might not change the world overnight, but it's where change has to start. And I think that was the final message of a Squid Game. And obviously, that's the message that the show's creator wanted you to understand by the end. But of course, he knew that a lot of people would just not get it because they're just watching entertainment. They're just watching a huge marketing strategy, even if it is packaged with a lot of messages and a lot of moral and social critique. Seong Gi-hun was not able to end the games or to make his message understood by the other players, or by us as the audience. So yes, Seong Gi-hun's death was meaningless, but at the same time it was meaningful, because it proved the point that the show's creator was trying to convey. Follow me, you want to watch more funny videos like this one.